The bells had not yet finished their mournful clanging when darkness swallowed the nursery. One moment the corridor outside blazed with torchlight and the clamor of booted feet. The next, the tapestried wall yawned open, and a rough hand dragged Rhaenys Targaryen through a hole where no door should have been. She was 4 and small for her age, but she fought like a cornered kitten, clawing at the fingers that muffled her cry. Someone, she never saw who, had tossed a bloody-smeared doll onto her feather mattress to fool the killers. The doll's yellow silk gown, lick-stained crimson, would stain the memory of this night for years to come. Down the secret stair they plunged. The stranger who carried her breathed hard, iron and wine and panic on his breath. Behind them the nursery erupted in shattering glass and a woman's scream abruptly cut short. Rhaenys did not know it was her septa until much later. She knew only that the hands that held her were not her mother's, and that every step echoed with the roar of distant lions. At the stair's foot, the passage narrowed, damp stone brushing her cheeks. The stranger kept muttering prayers to the seven, but in the pitch-black depths, the words broke apart and drifted like ash. When at last a shutter of rusted iron groaned open, salt air whooshed in, sharp enough to choke her. They emerged on a forgotten jetty beneath the shadow of Aegon's high hill, where Blackwater Bay lapped like a restless beast against mossy pilings. A half-rotten skiff waited, hull patched with tar the color of night. No lanterns, no flag. Only a cloaked figure at the oars, face hidden beneath a broad-brimmed straw hat, more suited to a peasant field hand than a smuggler. The man who had carried her pressed a hurried kiss to her hair. "Forgive me, little princess," and thrust her into the boat. Then he ran. She never learned his name, never saw his shadowed face again, but she dreamt of his loosed sob as long as childhood endured. The oarsmen pulled without a word, and King's Landing receded into a smear of dull fire. On the far shore of the river, torches winked like angry eyes atop the walls. Somewhere within those walls her brother Aegon still slept, or so she believed then, in the cradle mother had ordered fashioned of pale weirwood. Rhaenys craned about, searching for a glimpse of the red keep's high towers, yet smoke had already swallowed them. She tasted soot on her tongue. She tasted sorrow too, though she had no word for it. Hours or minutes later, time twisted until it lost all meaning. The skiff scraped sand. They had landed on the weed-choked bank opposite the city, where hulks of burned fishing smacks rotted in knee-deep water. Dawn bled orange across the sky. The oarsman leapt out, lifted her, and slogged toward a thicket of reeds taller than any soldier's pipe. A mule waited, saddlebags stuffed like misshapen bellies. He set her astride, wrapped her in a coarse brown cloak that smelled of onions, and pressed a finger to her lips. "Your name is Eleanor Waters," he told her in a rasp so low it could have been the reeds whispering. "You are no one's princess. You must forget dragons until the right hour comes." Then he placed a silver coin, no larger than her thumb, into her palm. A dancing dragon gleamed on one face. The other bore the rough stamp of a Dornish sun-hand spear. "When the hour strikes, remember this. Remember who you are." Then, without another word, he slapped the mule's flank. The beast lurched forward, and the reeds swallowed them both. 3 days of mud tracks and nettle stings carried Eleanor Waters. Rhaenys whispered that stubborn voice inside, to the straw-roofed inn at Bitterbridge. The oarsman never followed. Instead, a woman in a faded blue septa's gown waited on the porch. Gray hair scraped into a severe bun. She offered neither greeting nor comfort, only a wooden cup brimming with watered wine. Rhaenys gulped. The liquid tasted of ash and apple peel. The septa nodded once, satisfied, and motioned her inside. In the loft above the common room, where pitch-fat candles sputtered in low niches, the septa helped her strip and scrubbed her skin until it glowed raw. Layers of silk and Myrish lace vanished into a burlap sack. A plain linen shift replaced them. Her shoes, velvet slippers with golden stitching, were tossed to the flames. Rhaenys watched them blacken and fold like dying moths. The septa tugged a comb through her black hand-purple hair, hacked off a handful of snarls, and dabbed dye that smelled of walnut shells along the part. When the candle guttered out, Rhaenys' hair had become the muddy brown of a small folk child. You cannot weep, the septa warned in a voice hoarse with smoke. Tears leave tracks in the dye. Tracks lead lions in all. That night Rhaenys lay awake on a straw pallet, counting heartbeats instead of sheep. She reached beneath her shift to touch the coin. It burned cold against her belly. A single ember of truth in a world gone false. Weeks blurred into months as the septa shepherded her south along winding river roads. They begged at lonely farmsteads, traded prayers for crusts of bread, slept in hayrick shadows while thunder prowled overhead. Rhaenys learned to keep her eyes lowered, her tongue soft, her hands still. Yet when she dreamed, the red keep returned, polished, vaulting, hushed by her mother's lullaby. Maester Pycelle's perfumed oil warming her curls, Uncle Lewin Martell lifting her high, so she might sniff the crown of a spearman's helm. Dawn always stole those comforts, leaving only dew-damp grass and the sting of wind. Autumn turned the reach golden. Apple carts rolled past in slow processions, the fruit heaped like rubies beneath banners of House Fossaway and red wine. The septa warned her to stay within the hedge shadows, but the scent of cider sparked memories of the Dornish water gardens, where sweet oranges had once stained her chin. One crisp afternoon she darted forward, snatched a bruised apple from the road, and devoured it atop a crumbling milestone. Her belly cramped. Half hunger, half joy. That night, she did not dream of dragons. She dreamed of mother's laugh as Elia wiped juice from her daughter's cheeks. At Highgarden's outlying fields, the septa exchanged Rhaenys for a covered wagon driven by a one-gayed septon bound for Old Town. A sparrow tattoo darkened his brow, but his heart seemed kinder than the ink suggested. He spoke softly of the crone's wisdom and the mother's mercy, and though Rhaenys could not trust, she listened. Under his care she learned her letters anew, scratching prayer verses into pine shavings with a charcoal nub. Each stroke might have been a sortie cut carving a new self. One cold dawn, as gulls wheeled above the honeywine, the septon left her on a mossy quay, outside Old Town's harbor. 3 sailors, all wrinkled by salt and time, ferried her aboard the summer's swell, a wine galley riding low with casks from the arbor. The captain, a portly man with hands softer than hers, inspected her the way a man might inspect a stray pup. Doran Martell's coin is good, he said at last, but a silent deck rat is better. He pressed a rough-spun tunic into her arms and set her to coiling rope. Only when the breakers shrank to green haze behind them did she understand. Prince Doran, mother's cousin, had not abandoned her blood. He had bought her flight in secret coin, trading whispers with low-born birds who could never be tracked to Sunspear. The knowledge warmed her, even as spray froze upon her lashes. They made the stepstones in 11 days, Lys in 15, beyond to Tyrosh in 20. Each port spilled color and clamor across her growing mind. Naked Lyseni courtesans gilded from brow to heel, Taroshi captains whose forked beards shone like cut emeralds, beggar princes drinking shade wine on the Krakon's pier. She swallowed every sight, every smell, storing them as a dragon stores coin. At last the galley docked at Volantis under the gaze of the black walls. Incense drifted from ready brick temples where slaves lit night-long fires. Rhaenys was paraded through alleys, overshadowed by elephant-bannered manzas and tiger standards, dripping silk. Yet the man who greeted her in the river district wore neither sigil nor gems. He was lean as a wharf cat, with pale hair cropped close, and a smile too quick to remain. "Call me Quill," he said, leading her past a row of shuttered taverns. "I write impossible stories, little one, and you are about to become my favorite fiction." He ushered her into a low-ceilinged room, where parchment lay strewn across a cedar desk. Quill tucked a quill, of course, behind his ear, and began to sketch names upon clean vellum. Eleanor of Jade Step, Rowan Hill, Aceria Stone. Each name bloomed with invented parentage, false ledgers of birth. By candle's end, he had forged 3 lives for her, each more mundane than the last. Rhaenys clutched the freshest sheet, the ink still wet. It named her Rhaena Waters, orphan of a Westerosi spice trader lost at sea. "This is your shield," Quill murmured, tapping the paper. "Do not let it crack. For 2 years she lived beneath that shield in the teeming misery of Volantis's river district. She hawked mussels along the long bridge, her cries drowned by the thunder of chained feet crossing overhead. She shared a garret with 3 other orphans who called her River Rat for the smell of fish clinging to her clothes. At night, they traded stories of the dragon's fall, each tale wilder than the last. Rhaenys listened, lips shut tight, while a furnace of vengeance kindled in her ribs. 8 times she slipped to the docks and paid a copper to hear sailors recite the names of Westeros' new lords. 8 times she heard of King Robert Baratheon, Lord Tywin Lannister, striking deals from Casterly Rock, and of Cersei, Lioness and Queen, reigning over the red stone spires that had once belonged to House Targaryen. Each time she walked home with her nails dug bloody crescents into her palms. The 9th time, a weather-blown Pentoshi told her a stranger tale. A silver-haired boy across the narrow sea. A boy named Viserys, last dragon prince, hiding under the protection of a magister in Pentos. And with him, a babe sister, Daenerys, born amid salt and smoke. Rhaenys' heart lurched, yet she did not cry out. She merely slipped the man 2 extra coppers and asked what he knew of a babe brother named Aegon. The sailor spat into the gutter. Died at the wall of his cradle. Little miss, skull dashed to pulp. The words struck like hammer blows on fragile glass. That night, Rhaenys crawled to the roof of the garret and stared across the moon-silvered Rhoyne. She pressed her coin, the coin, against the thin scar that ringed her thumb, a reminder of walnut dye long since grown out. Dragons would remember. She swore to the night. Dragons would roar again. Spring found her tall for her 11 name days, lean from hunger, quick with rope and knife. Quill visited seldom yet left scrolls of learning each time. Histories of the Valyrian freehold, treatises on dragon lore, songs of Nymeria's 1,000 ships. Beside Oil's mudge docks, Rhaenys practiced tongue-at-twisting high Valyrian verses, until dockhands tossed spoiled fish at her head and called her mad. Let them mock. A dragon's flame needs the wind of ridicule to burn hot. Word filtered downriver. The king across the sea sat heavy in his cups. The hand, Jon Arryn, had died. Whispers of new wars stirred old barrels like settling lees. One sweltering dusk Quill appeared and pressed a sealed parchment into her palm. The hour approaches, he said. Tonight you flee Volantis. A barge will bear you to Selhorys. From there traders loyal to House Martell will convey you to Korth, then to the Jade Sea, or perhaps Bravos. Paths fork, and we cannot read every signpost, but choose you must. Rhaenys unrolled the parchment. Inside lay not instructions, but a map of Westeros, drawn in quick strokes. The red mountains marking Dorne, the green expanse of the Reach, the direwolf-shaped north, and at the heart, a crown unlabeled. No words, only one slash of red ink where King's Landing stood. Quill's eyes gleamed. Strike there, he whispered. One day, when lions drowse, and cravens fatten, and the stag's heart slows, the world remembers Targaryens by the heat of their vengeance. But she was still only Rhaenys, half-starved, coin clenched in a calloused fist. So she fled again, borne on dark waters, while the Rhoynar song faded behind her, and the map's red slash bled across her dreams. Selhorys offered her its spice reek and slaver's chains. She eluded both. She slept in temple ruins south of Mantares, listening to priests mutter of doom still smoking in the bones of Balerion's road. She tasted rain thick with sulfur, and some night's thunder cracked like dragon wings reborn. By 14, she crossed the disputed lands disguised as a caravan boy. She learned to gamble with finger bones, to sing bawdy Yomkish ditties, to reverse a dagger in a blink. In nights of rare safety, she traced Quill's map with ash on packed earth, practicing the long voyage backward. Dorne first, yes, but through which pass? The Boneway guarded by scorpions and burning pitch, or the Prince's Pass, gentler yet watched. Each route presented a puzzle piece she dared not lose. Vengeance had no room for half measures. Then, as winter's breath grew sharp above Essos, a shadow reached her. Viserys and Daenerys had vanished from Pentos, tracked perhaps by sellswords of the usurper, or worse. Magister Illyrio, so the whispers said, had sent them east with a Khalasar. Rhaenys weighed the rumor like steel, on a smith's scale. If dragons yet lived in siblings' hearts, they might serve as sword and torch. But siblings might also burn her plans to ruin. She tucked the knowledge away, neither rejecting nor embracing it. Dragons choose their hour. She reached Braavos on the day the Titan sounded its horn for a fog fair. No Westerosi would ever know. The city smoldered with lantern light behind veils of vapor. Barges floated by like ghosts, their hull bells chiming mournfully. On the moon pool's edge, she found a cobbler who accepted 2 nights sweeping for a crusty heel of bread. Rhaenys scrubbed blood from the shop's threshold. Someone else's brawl, none of her concern. While the cobbler's apprentice complained of a new hand of the king, a dwarf rumored cleverer than Johanna's cats. Let them shuffle hands like deck cards, the apprentice sneered. So long as gold still flows from Lannisport. Lannisport.k. The name stung more than the soapy water. Rhaenys gazed at her warped reflection in the pool. Hair now curling near her shoulders, dyed again. Henna this time, to a rich chestnut. She could hardly recall the purple-black sheen that once matched her father's. Yet her eyes remained the violet of a dusk sky over Dragonstone, and no dye could cloud that. One day some lion would look into those eyes and know fear. In a shuttered attic above the cobbler's she traced Quill's map anew, yet another copy folded to shreds. She aligned the red slash of King's Landing with a crack between floorboards, then drew faint arrows toward Dorne, toward the sea, toward each distant possibility. Her coin lay at the center, gleaming in candlelight like a single golden scale. The plan crystallized over many nights, grain by grain, until at last, she saw the shape of her return. She would sail to Sunspear under the guise of Rhaena Waters, bastard kin to House Toland, seeking service in Prince Doran's court. From there, with Martell backing and Dornish spears, she would press her claim, but softly, softly, until the realm's wounds reopened of their own rot. No dragons left, perhaps, but rumor proved a blade sharper than Valyrian steel. She would be rumor incarnate. The princess dead yet not, the song half heard, bait for restless souls who longed for the old banner's dance. First, though, she needed coin enough for passage. Allow her to stride Sunspear's floors as some minor lady, rather than a gutter snipe. She turned to Braavos' darker veins. The House of Black and White whispered of faces to borrow. Yet she would owe them a life. The Ragman Harbor hosted sailors who would knife a friend for a clipped penny. Instead, she found the Iron Bank's lesser offices, where letters of credit could sprout from nothing given the right accent. The right forging seal. Quill had taught her well. By summer's height she walked the Purple Harbor quay with a letter granting her 500 golden dragons, enough to appear the modest cousin of a minor Dornish house. She booked passage aboard the Merry Minnow, a ship too jolly by half, her deck lined with bright fish-shaped pennants. The captain, a Pentoshi of flamboyant appetites, winked at her falsified seal, but made no comment. Gold smelled sweet, no matter the hand that minted it. The voyage south was languid, the wind gentle. Rhaenys stood at the bow nightly, letting salt crust her lips, imagining the heat of Dorne curling around her bones like a cat returning to its hearth. When the Tower of the Sun rose golden on the horizon, she felt an ache she had thought long scabbed over. Mother had promised to take her one day to the water gardens, to taste dates stuffed with cheese and swim with princes among marble arches. Now Prince Oberyn rumored rode the sands in exile. Princess Elias' ashes lay in a box somewhere between grief and rage, and Prince Doran sat swollen gankled in his tower. But the water gardens still shimmered in the morning light, and waves lapped the shore where Nymeria's ships had once beached. History lived here, and history could be bent. At the customs pier she presented her letter of credit, her forged pedigree. The steward, a lank man with eyes narrowed against the sun, glanced at the seal, at her chestnut locks, at her violet eyes half veiled by fringe. Something flickered in his gaze, recognition or suspicion. She could not tell. "Welcome home, my lady," he said at last, voice smooth as the polished jasper of the courtyard. He returned the parchment with a flourish. "Sunspear has been awaiting you. Prince Doran bids you rest in the palace until he may grant an audience." Her heart stopped, then leapt. She followed him through arched gates of blood-orange stone, into a maze of shaded hallways that smelled of pomegranate and cool fountains. Servants in flowing linen bowed, though their eyes also flickered. She fought to keep her shoulders level, her stride measured. Every echoing footfall rang like the clash of fate's cymbals. At last they ushered her into a domed chamber, where pale green light sifted through jagged-latticed windows. Prince Doran Martell awaited in a cushioned chair, thick coverlets swaddling limp legs. Age and gout had lined his face, but his eyes gleamed sharp as Dornish steel. "My Lady Rhaenys," he greeted. Voice soft, or should I say, "My cousin Rhaenys." The words struck like an arrow to the breast. A dozen years of hiding crumbled. The false names, the dyes, the forged seals, all ashes. Rhaenys dropped to her knees. The coin slipped from her sleeve, ringing upon the marble. She bowed until her forehead touched the stone, and for the first time since the sack of King's Landing, she wept openly. Prince Doran's hand, dry and cool, rested upon her head. "We do not kneel to kin here," he murmured. "Stand, princess. Sunspear stands with you." When she rose, tears still streaking her cheeks, she looked upon her mother's cousin, and saw not a sickly prince, but a pillar of dawn-lit resolve. And behind him, she sensed the rattling spear of Oberyn, the scalding grief of 1,000 Dornishmen whose princess had been murdered by lions. All that fury, all that patience, it bent toward her like desert wind swirling into a storm. She drew a breath that filled her lungs from throat to toes. "Cousin," she said, voice hoarse yet unbroken. "Please tell me how my brother died, and what price was paid." Prince Doran's smile was sorrow and steel. "No price yet sufficient, but now perhaps we begin the counting." Days became strategy. Rhaenys met with Maester Caliot at dawn, studying the ledgers of Dornish levies, the numbers of spears that could ride within a moon's turn. At noon she sparred in shaded courts with Tiny Sand, who mocked her soft Braavosi footwork, but praised her blade's quick tongue. Evenings found her before maps with Prince Doran, tracing enemy fault lines, King Robert's thinning coffers, Lannister pride festering beneath gilded mail. The Stark's northern honor stretched across half a realm. Yet always the prince counseled patience. "Lions grow complacent when the desert sun lulls them," he said. "We must be that sun. Patience, yes." But Rhaenys' blood flowed hot. She learned of Westeros's new hand, Tyrion Lannister, dwarf brother to the queen, and of whispers that dragons stirred again in the far east where Khal Drogo rode. Such portents fed sleepless nights. She paced the moonlit balcony of the Tower of the Sun, palm pressed to the warm stone, imagining armies marching, sails billowing with a three-headed dragon once more. She recalled a lullaby Elia had sung in soft Valyrian. Sometimes she sang it to herself, voice barely above a breath, letting the words weave armor in her heart. On the first anniversary of her return to Sunspear, the Sand Snakes held a private feast atop the spear tower. The sky bled purple and gold. Oberyn poured sour Dornish red, Nymeria smiled a cat smile, and Sorella climbed the parapets to point eastward. "A comet flames above the free cities," she said, wind whipping her copper hair. "Men call it dragon's breath." Rhaenys lifted her cup, the wine's surface reflecting flickers of comet light. "Then let the realm remember," she declared, and the sand snakes echoed her, cups raised high. In that moment she felt kinship deeper than blood. They were all daughters of vengeance, sworn to a song unfinished. After the feast, Prince Doran summoned her to his private solar. Scrolls lay scattered across a mosaic of the Rhoyner's journey, candle wax spotting the river tiles. He dismissed attendants and gestured her to sit. Outside, the comet's tail burned the horizon afire. "There is news from the east," he said, sliding a sealed parchment across the table. From Korth, a girl of your blood, Daenerys Stormborn, has hatched 3 dragons from stone eggs. The word stunned her as surely as if the comet had struck the tower. Dragons. Real dragons. Breathing. Living. Flying. The world had changed while she plotted sparrow flights and spear counts. Prince Doran's eyes measured her shock. If true, he continued, we hold 2 keys to Westeros Gate. Your claim by blood and her claim by flame. Fitted together, they may unlock the realm. Rhaenys' breath came shallow, excitement warring with dread. Dragons could burn both foe and friend. Daenerys might welcome a lost niece, or see her as rival. Still, destiny had never cared for comfort. We must reach her before others do, Rhaenys said at last. Send envoys sworn to Martell loyalty. Let them bear my ring, my vow. We are stronger together than apart. Prince Doran nodded, slow and grave. It shall be so. Yet while envoys sail east, you must prepare west. The path to King's Landing wins through treachery. Vipers strike only when the victim's eye strays. Now. She inclined her head. Teach me to strike unseen, cousin. I have waited half my life. I will wait no longer. Thus began her second schooling. Whispers in shadowed halls, poisons distilled in moonlit stills, the art of secrets cloaked inside courtesies. Tiny tutored her in slow venoms that mimicked winter fevers. Nymeria introduced her to spies who wore perfumed silks by day and black masks by dusk. Prince Doran unfolded letters penned in cipher, and she learned to read truths standing on their heads. Over months, her heart hardened, yet some nights she traced the coin's ridged edge and felt the frightened child within stir, asking after mother, after brother. She silenced the child with promises. Just as soon. Then, as a dry lightning storm hammered the mountains, a raven arrived from King's Landing. King Robert Baratheon lay dead, gored by a boar. Queen's guards escorted his bastard son Joffrey to the throne. The realm teetered. Stark wolves howled for truth. Lannister lions roared for silence, and across the narrow sea the Dragon Queen gathered fire made flesh. Prince Doran set the raven's parchment aflame upon a brazier. Smoke coiled to the ceiling like a beckoning spirit. The sun has climbed past its zenith, he murmured. Soon it will blaze hottest. Rhaenys looked to the west, beyond the palace walls, beyond the sea. The hour had emerged from shadow, coin caught between finger and thumb, ready to be flipped into the reddening sky. And somewhere in that sky, 3 young dragons beat their wings, searching for a wind strong enough to carry vengeance home. She took ship from Planky Town at dawn, disguised as Lady Rowan Hill, retainer to the Tolans, bound for Old Town with casks of Dornish red. The sand snakes rode north by land, each carrying covert orders. Rally sell sails in the stepstones. Court the discontent of the riverlords. Poison Lannister ears with rumors of gold mines run dry. Prince Doran moved no armies yet, but pawns advanced along shaded squares. On the deck, sea spray salted Rhaenys' lips, and she tasted the flavor of the future. Brine mixed with copper blood. The coin nestled at her throat on a dragon glass chain. She touched it once, whispering a prayer to no god, only to the memory of a doll spattered red and of a man who had carried her through hidden stairs. His face remained faceless, but his sacrifice echoed in every step she took toward the realm that had doomed him. The arbor's green shores slipped by, then the chalk cliffs of the Shield Isles. Night cloaked the world when the ship angled east toward the mouth of the Blackwater Rush. Lanterns were doused, oars dipped in silence. Captain Sorn, bold, greedy, meant to slip past the red wine patrols and sell black market vintages to King's Landing's tavern keepers. Rhaenys needed but one cask. Herself. Once ashore, she would shed the guise of Rowan Hill like snakeskin, glide into the capital's forgotten warrens, and let rumor of a princess resurrected seep upward until it coiled around the Iron Throne. Yet fate delights in mocking careful scripts. On the second night, as fog swaddled the bay, torches flared along the shore. A war galley bore down, golden lion prow snarling above waves. Red cloaks bristled the railing. Trumpets blared. Captain Soren cursed and ordered sails trimmed. Escape was folly. Grappling irons flew. Lannister men hot arms stormed the deck. Rhaenys ducked beneath swinging blades, heart hammering, coin a brand upon her chest. One brute seized her arm, hauled her toward the prow. "Found a pretty dove," he sneered, breath matted thick. She buried a boot heel in his knee. He roared, but grip held. The deck pitched. Torchlight revealed her violet eyes for a sliver of a breath. The brute's gaze widened. "Gods," he rasped. "Your eyes." A flash of silver curved behind his ear. The brute dropped, lifeblood pattering across planks. Tiny sand emerged, vision of death in lavender silk. "Captain wouldn't mind a stowaway." She winked, but lions never share prey. Rhaenys gaped. "You followed?" Tiny's grin glimmered wicked. "I prefer escorted voyages. No time for sisterly squabbles." The deck raged with steel. Tyene thrust a dagger hilt into Rhaenys' palm. Motherhoof pearl chased with vines. Pointy end goes in the lion. Then she vanished into smoke. Instinct and half-forgotten Braavosi lessons guided Rhaenys. She ducked, slid, struck. Blood slicked the rail beneath her grip. A horn sounded distant thunder. The Lannister galley pulled away, satisfied with seized wine and a dozen prisoners shackled to benches. But Rhaenys and Tyene had leapt overboard moments before, knives clenched between teeth, crimson cloaks discarded to dark water. Currents dragged them toward mudflats west of the city. Night swallowed torches. Exhaustion numbed limbs, yet vengeance burned. A coal banked, yet bright. They crawled ashore beneath rag-clad bushes alive with midges. Rhaenys sucked ragged breaths, spitting brine. Tyene laughed softly. Madness and mirth entwined. "Welcome to King's Landing, princess." "Smells like shit." "Must be destiny." Lights of the capital winked across the river, lanternflies in summer's dusk. Somewhere beyond, in chambers of red stone, a boy king played with crossbow bolts, while a queen polished golden lies. Rhaenys stared, shivering though night was warm, and felt time curve to this point, a drawn bowstring quivering. "Not yet," she whispered, voice raw. "But soon." Tyene unstoppered a tiny vial. "Dragon's tears," she said. 2 drops, numb pain. 10 kill quietly. "Pick your poison." Rhaenys pushed the vial away. "Pain reminds me I'm alive. Keep it for lions." Together, they rose, dripping river silt. Behind them the black water murmured secrets. Ahead the city gaped like a beast always hungry. They slipped into reeds, 2 phantoms pursuing a promise 15 years unbroken. And the coin, warmed by her racing heart, clinked once, an echo across fate's wide chamber, heralding the day dragons would walk the world once more. Wow, hey. Moonset silvered the rushes at the river's edge, and a damp mist rose from the black water like breath from a slumbering beast. Rhaenys and Tyene trudged inland in silence, water squelching in their boots, ears tuned for barking dogs or creaking armor. None came. Past a tumble of half-collapsed hovels, they reached the high road that wound toward the mud gate. Yellow lanterns bobbed on its parapets, though no guards patrolled the marshy approach. King's Landing had grown slothful in the years since the usurper's victory. They waited until clouds swallowed the waning moon, then slipped from reed to hedge to barrel, hugging the angle where the curtain wall met river. A drain spout yawned wide, iron grating twisted free by earlier floods. Tyene wriggled first, gliding into the stench-black tunnel with a serpent's ease. Rhaenys followed, smoothing damp hair beneath a woolen cap. Scum slicked her palms, and rats squealed protest. The passage belched them into a cesspit beneath a slaughterhouse, where dripping hooks swayed overhead like pendulums of rust. A cracked stone stair climbed to a trapdoor. Tyene applied a thin sliver of metal, click, and pale torchlight leaked down. They emerged behind a stack of brine barrels. The butchers had long since stumbled home drunk. Only flies kept watch over congealed gore. Rhaenys gagged, yet pressed on. In the alley beyond, a night soil cart rumbled by, wheels clattering over cobbles. Tyene flagged the driver, a pock-scarred man half asleep on his reins, and flashed a silver staghorn. He grunted and beckoned them aboard. They rode crouched, amid reeking tubs, hooded, unseen, all the way to Flea Bottom, where guttering braziers marked the warren's outer lanes. Flea Bottom smelled of boiled bone, tallow, and old sin. Smoke curled from cookpots above open pits, mingling with laughter so raw it drifted close to weeping. Here Lannister gold seldom shone. The crimson cloak commanded no fear, only the promise of a knife between ribs. Rhaenys felt safer amid the squalor than she ever had among Volantene slavers. Dirt is an honest mask, Quill had once told her. They dismounted near a tanner's shed. Tyene paid the driver another coin and whispered, "Tell old Sally the musk rose blooms." The driver spat but nodded. Old Sally proved to be neither old nor named Sally. Instead, a wiry woman in her middling years, skin the color of warm earth, greeted them at a crooked doorway flanked by pigskins. Grease laminated her cheeks, but her eyes were sharp as glass shards. "Princess passphrase checks," she said, ushering them into a candlelit chamber stuffed with grain sacks. "Take east stairs, third loft. Mind the loose board." She vanished before Rhaenys could thank her. The loft stank of mildew. A straw mattress, a chipped basin, and 2 stools comprised its comforts. Tyene inspected shutters, wedged a sliver of glass to overlook the lane, then crouched to pry up floorboard number 3. Beneath lay a narrow niche containing rolled parchment, a purse of coin, and a folded garment of coarse gray. She tossed the purse to Rhaenys. "Martell coin, in case we must bribe watchmen," Tyene said. "The parchment is better, Vera's latest ledger." She unfurled it. Symbols, times, addresses, no names. "Feathers for chickens," she mused. "And the spider thinks himself subtle." Rhaenys brushed a thumb over each symbol until patterns emerged. Arrows traced the spider's footsteps from the Red Keep to a brothel called the Peach Pit. Onward to a blacksmith off Cobbler's Square. "He herds his little birds," she whispered, half admiring. "We need Varys. He may hide us if he believes we serve his long game." Tyne's grin flashed white. "Then let's pluck him from his web." But first they required faces less memorable. Tyene removed 2 gourds of muddy pigment, painted new shadows beneath Rhaenys' cheekbones, altered the arch of her lips with a smudge of soot mixed with tallow. The woman in the cracked mirror looked haggard, older, plain, but her eyes still shone amethyst. No dye could cloak that. Tyene tied a ragged scarf across her brow, letting the ends hang low. There. No one shall notice royalty behind grime. They slept in turns. Dawn's light filtered through warped shutters, painting dust motes gold. Somewhere a cock crowed. Rhaenys donned the gray garment, a laundress's frock, and tucked her coin within the breastband. Tyene wore a healer's blue robe sewn with a caduceus, the torch staff of the mother. Hidden daggers glinted between stitches. They melted into the throng bound for the markets. Small folk bartering wilted leeks, sellswords boasting of boar hunts, ragpickers dragging carts of broken hopes. The city had not yet smelled their purpose. Rhaenys bought a loaf of black bread to share. Tyene filched 2 apples from an inattentive vendor, winked, and vanished down an alley, telling Rhaenys to follow the sparrow calls come dusk-a-dos. Rhaenys wended toward Cobbler's Square, pretending to search for laundry work while her gaze mapped watchers on every rooftop. Gold cloaks lounged at street corners, helms askew. Beggars dozed under wall niches. Urchins played tidestone dice. She marked each with mental ink. At a tinker's stall she traded the black bread for a dulled copper needle and a spooled waxed thread. Tools to pick locks or garrote silence. Past noon the city sweltered. She ducked into the shadow of Baelor's Sept, eyed scabs of soot still marring its marble from a riot 3 years prior. There she overheard 2 acolytes gossiping. Joffrey's latest decree taxed loaves, burdening bakers who already laced dough with sawdust. One acolyte murmured, "The gods must send deliverance or dragons." Rhaenys bowed her head as if in prayer, though her lips pulled to a thin smile. The Peach Pit brothel huddled near the street of silk, its shutters painted a faded rose. Inside, perfumed haze clouded the air, swirling around bodies draped on cushions. Rhaenys offered her services laundering bed linens. The madam, plump and shrewd, grunted, leading her to a back stair that reeked of sweat and lamp oil. Rhaenys glimpsed a cap-on plump eunuch speaking to the madam in hushes. He checked ledger pages bound with red ribbons. Varys? No, taller, younger, one of his confederates. She memorized his gait, the mole near his throat. All afternoon she scrubbed silken sheets in scalding water while listening for scraps. Talk of higher levies, whispers that the new hand, Tyrion Lannister, had angered the queen, rumors that wildfire stores had grown. When dusk bled crimson through cracked windows, she folded the last sheet, dipped fingers in scented oil, and slipped through the kitchen. Tynene's sparrow call reached her near Pigpen Alley. A high whistle 3 notes long. Rhaenys whistled back. Tyne appeared from a doorway that stank of boil wine, hair wrapped in coarse burlap dat. Spider's factor leaves the brothel each third bell, Rhaenys reported. He carries a ledger. If we follow softly, we might find Varys Aroost. Tyne twirled a bone dart between fingers. Or we corner the factor, bleed him of secrets. Less risk than dancing with Varys. Nam? Varys trades secrets, Rhaenys countered. Gold buys only silence. Secrets buy allegiance. Tyne sniffed. Then let's weave our own web. They tailed the factor that night, across the street of silk, past Rhaenys Hill, into an abandoned candlemaker's shop. There, the man rapped thrice upon a beam, lifted a trapdoor, and vanished below. Rhaenys memorized the pattern. They waited until footfalls dwindled, then repeated the knocks. The trapdoor groaned open. They slipped onto a ladder that descended to a vaulted room littered with scroll tubes and drip-tap candles. No guards. Shadow parted behind a pillar. Varys stepped forth, plump hands raised in bemused greeting. His powder-pale face glistened in candlelight. Twin black pearls adorned his earlobes. My, he purred. 2 vipers slithering into my parlor. Sunspear breeds bold guests. Tyne's daggers appeared. Rhaenys' coin flashed in her palm. Your birds failed tonight, Tyne hissed. Cage them tighter. Varys smiled. Oh, some birds were meant to fly free. I knew of your landing, dear princess. Nemdero. Rhaenys stiffened. Then you know why I'm here. I know what vengeance whispers to you, he replied. But vengeance often devours its keepers. Still, he studied her eyes. I serve the realm, and the realm may yet need a dragon. He gestured toward a low table. Shall we confer? They seated themselves amid parchment mountains. Tyne remained standing, arms folded. Varys produced a decanter of sweet wine. I can spirit you into the Red Keep, hide you among my little birds, even place you beside Tommen's cradle. But the price is always risk. No. I offer information, Rhaenys said. Rhaenys Targaryen lives and hatches dragons far across the sea. Soon she sails west. You will require someone here to prepare the ground. Varys' eyes glittered. Oh, what delicious tidings, dragons. He steepled fingers. Very well, princess. I will grant you sanctuary, clothing, books, any scroll you desire. In return, you remain patient. The realm tilts already. Stannis and Renly both martial hosts. A dragon must strike after the stag bleeds, not before. Rhaenys met his gaze, unblinking. Dragons choose their hour. Indeed, Varys murmured. A compromise formed. She would take residence in the old rat-catcher's quarters beneath Maegor's holdfast, disguised as a mute baker's helper. Tyne refused to remain caged. She would wander the city, gathering dissent and tasting rumors. Varys supplied tokens, copper flowers, to flash at certain fishmongers or candleboys for safe passage. By midnight, Rhaenys and Tyne departed the warren by separate tunnels, each bearing new masks. Rhaenys entered the Red Keep through a hidden postern at dawn. The walls loomed like giant's ribs. She donned a threadbare smock, white flour dusting her hair, and carried a sack of oats as prop guide. The castle kitchens buzzed with clanging pans. She moved among scullions who cared little for new faces. Flower girl. Mute, they assumed, for she never spoke. She stoked ovens, kneaded dough, scrubbed cauldrons. At night she returned to a closet near the rat-catcher's old den, where Varys' birds left scraps of parchment quoting council arguments, troop movements, whispers of wildfire barrels stashed at the guild hall of the alchemists. She studied each scrap by glowworm lanterned. On the third kitchen dawn she glimpsed Tyrion Lannister, the new hand, arguing with the master chef over soup quality. He wore a mantle of dark wolf fur trimmed by gold chain, yet his wit lit the hall brighter than torchlight. She caught part of his complaint. If I must swallow this swill, I may as well feast on my nephew's pronouncements. Laughter erupted. Rhaenys noted the respect the kitchen staff accorded him. Allies bloom in strange gardens, she mused. That night, Varys summoned her through catwalks above the throne room. They perched on a lattice overlooking the Iron Throne, its jagged silhouette stark in moonglow. A raven from Storm's End, Varys whispered. Renly Baratheon crowns himself and marches toward Kingswood with 50,000 reachmen. Catelyn Stark rides south to Parley. Stannis assembles ships at Dragonstone. The lions grow nervous. Which stag will gore the other? Rhaenys asked. Whichever one accepts shadowy aid, I presume, Varys said with a mild smile. But that is tomorrow's puzzle. Rhaenys scanned the hall below. Cobwebs fluttered between sword tufts. The throne's height reminded her of childhood legends. Fire forged by Aegon, tempered by blood. Once it belonged to her bloodline, ours by right. She clenched the railing until knuckles whitened. Let the stags break each other, she murmured. The wolf howls far in the north, and the kraken stirs. When smoke clears, dragons will soar. Varys favored her with a contemplative nod. You speak like a student of chaos. No, she replied. I speak as its heir. Weeks slid by. Rhaenys mastered the map of servants' passages, memorizing guard shift whistles, learning which door hinges groaned, which remained silent. Each night she scratched notes into dough scraps before burning them. Corridor lengths, alcove measurements, archway vantage points. She built the castle in her mind, the way a mason stacks stone. In Flea Bottom, Tyne planted seeds of unrest. She bribed bakers to double sawdust, conspiring so loaves crumbled to dust in gullible mouths. Word spread that Joffrey's taxes starved children. She salted rumors that Cersei planned to claim youngest daughters for brothel servitude. At the same time, Tyne coaxed honeyed tidings toward the Tyrell footmen encamped outside the city, tales of a rightful princess spilling Dornish wine beneath Myrish starlight, willing to wed the Knight of Flowers to unite roses and dragons. Each rumor traveled on wind, rootless, impossible to slay. By full moon, Tyne returned to the rat-catcher's den, bearing a satchel of vials. Lace Joffrey's wine, she suggested. No child. No monstrous king. Rhaenys shook her head. Poison breeds another martyr. I desire a living symbol of rot. A king feared yet despised. Let his cruelty ripen until the realm begs for change. Tyne frowned but conceded. Then perhaps his hand might serve our plan. Tyrion? Rhaenys considered. He is Lannister born, yet at odds with his sister. He values intellect, Tyne said, and he loathes fools. So we show him fools. An opportunity arrived sooner than expected. Joffrey, bored, commanded a tourney of archers on the city walls. He took crossbow in hand, aiming at live pigs painted in stark gray. Small folk gathered below to watch, horrified. When the boy king lodged a bolt into a squealing flank, Rhaenys, flour dust on cheeks, stood among the servants distributing cups of watered wine. She caught Tyrion's gaze as he winced at the cruelty. Her eyes, violet to spite grime, locked with his for a heartbeat. She lowered her head, but not before tilting her cup, spilling watered wine onto her apron in a deliberate star shape. Seven-pointed? Symbol of the faith. Tyrion blinked. Curiosity piqued. That night, a dwarf-sized shadow appeared outside her flower closet. She admitted him, barred the door. I trust you know the cost of games, girl, Tyrion whispered, eyes glittering. Who crafts symbols in wine before the hand? She met his stare. A friend. I've none to spare. Yet you seek them, she replied. Elsie would not prowl a servant's corridor past midnight. He smirked. Fair. He produced a wineskin. Parley? Rhaenys uncorked, sniffed for poison. Mere arbor gold. They drank. I am called Elin. She lied. I bring word of rot under your sister's nose. Wildfire storehouses enlarged tenfold, hidden ledgers from the alchemists. Tyrion's gaze sharpened. If that's true, you've earned my ear. I can guide you to proof. But I desire safe passage for a relative unjustly hunted. Tyrion leaned back. Blackmail. How Lannister of you? No, she said softly. Bargain. Gold may buy soldiers, but truth buys kingdoms. He studied her, then nodded once. Tomorrow at the hour of ghosts, the hand's torchbearer will wait by the blacksmith's stair. Lead him. She swallowed relief. Agreed. He lingered, peering closer, as though memory stirred. You bear rare eyes, he said. Have I seen them in paintings? Eyes see many things, she answered. Some must stay unseen. She turned away before his clever mind threaded clues. The following night, Tyrion and two clansmen, Shaga and Ty, met, followed Rhaenys into the warren of tunnels. By tallow candlelight she guided them through a corkscrew stair that ended behind a false wall in the Guildhall of the Alchemists. Adeous odors stung nostrils. 20 iron-bound casks lined the floor, each stamped with the glass candle sigil. An alchemist dozed at a desk. Tyrion cursed softly. 7 save us all. Rhaenys produced a stolen parchment. Production orders signed by Sir Boros Blount. Sealed by royal command. Volume quadruple last year's. Tyrion pocketed the parchment, then studied Rhaenys anew. You risked much bringing me, he said. Name your price again. Leave the city gate unguarded on the night your river chain rises, she said. A single wagon must pass unmolested. He frowned. A curious request. Grant it, and a queen's foes become yours. He eyed the wildfire casks, lips pursed. We shall speak again soon, Lady Unnamed. They parted. Rhaenys exhaled shaky breath. The plan advanced. The wagon would bear Dornish spears disguised as merchants, tiny among them. Varys arranged credentials. Tyrion's chain, secretly forged across the river, soon would trap Stannis' fleet. Chaos would follow. Amid that chaos, Rhaenys needed allies within the city. Sellswords, smiths, sparrows to rise when horns blew. Tyne's next report carried heavier news. Renly Baratheon slain at Bitterbridge. Some said by shadow, others by treachery. His host bent the knee to Stannis. Loras Tyrell swore vengeance. The Reach might soon side with lions out of spite. Rhaenys paced the den, fury burning. These stag games risked her board. Yet death carved cracks. Cracks let vines grow. She composed letters in Dornish cipher, carried by Varys' fastest birds. To Stannis, the lion fattens upon debt. The dragon repays by fire. Spare the small folk of King's Landing, and find your gates opened by those wronged. To Highgarden, your rose withers in a lion's maw. A dragon's son can nourish it anew. To Daenerys, across seas, your niece waits beneath false banners, weaving webs for our return. Trust the coin. Bendan. She sealed each with wax bearing a 3-headed dragon imprint carved from driftwood. Tyne dispatched them by gull, raven, and whispered rumor. Spring storms hammered the coast. The city starved within its walls. Grain wagons from the Reach halted after Renly's death. Fish prices tripled. Riots flared near Cobbler Square. Joffrey ordered archers to teach manners. Arrows thumped into crowds. Rhaenys, hidden above in the gallery, watched small folk scatter like sparrows before a hawk. She tasted bile. Her anger crystallized into decision. Tonight she would spark Flea Bottom to flame. Not a fire but a voice. She slipped into the sties at dusk, climbed atop a keg outside Baylor's barrel house, and spoke aloud for the first time in King's Landing. Voice raw but carrying. Brothers and sisters, do you hunger? Do your children gnaw bark while lions eat swan? Bring your cries to the gods. Tomorrow at sunrise gather before the sept. Kneel not to marble, but to your own strength. Feed the gods with truth, that the king starves you. That the king starves you. Faces turned. Wide eyes glinted. Someone shouted agreement. Others muttered fear. She leapt down, vanished into alleys before gold cloaks arrived. At dawn, thousands assembled outside Baylor's septoediu. Bells clanged. Sparrows raised wooden staves. The high septon emerged, trembling, to bless them, but shouts drowned prayer. Bread, justice. Down with the bastard king. Rhaenys mingled amid cloaks, pushing the chant, guiding fury. Tiny, afar on a rooftop, loosed a slingstone that struck a gold cloak helm. Confusion erupted. The mob surged, breaking lines, pouring into the street of flour. Ovens were gutted. Royal granaries raided. Gold cloaks beat back, clubs cracking skulls. Chaos reared. Within the Red Keep, horns sounded. Tyrion cursed as Joffrey insisted on witnessing the rabble's pain. Cersei screamed to keep him inside, but the boy king rode out escorted by hound and kettleblacks. Rhaenys watched from a doorway as Joffrey's crossbow felled a cobbler's wife, clutching a rotten onion. The crowd roared. Someone flung dung. It struck the king's cheek. Joffrey shrieked, "Kill them all!" Stones flew. Horses panicked. Hodor roared something about king's justice, but his voice drowned. Tynene's sling cracked again. A brazier's coals toppled onto a wagon of sugar. Kindling black smoke, the royal party retreated, leaving corpses crushed beneath hooves. The riot lasted hours. By dusk bodies lay in heaps, but seeds sank deeper. Fear in Joffrey's eyes, doubt in guards, rage in sparrows. That night, Rhaenys met Tynee atop the abandoned bell tower of St. Maria. Rain had washed blood from their clothes, but not from memory. "A good day's harvest," Tynee said, voice tinged with awe. Rhaenys gazed across torch-studded rooftops. The realm now smells its own decay. Tynee leaned against the parapet. "We could slip away tonight, sail to Dragonstone, present you to Stannis as dragon heir in exchange for crown." "No," Rhaenys said. "Stannis would use me then cast me aside. We play longer. Then Blackwater will decide all. Varys claimed Stannis sails within the month. Let him come." Rhaenys tightened her cloak. "In fire and water we shall carve our path." Days later, Tyrion summoned her to the Hand Solar. She arrived still in flower garb. He dismissed his guards, poured wine, gestured her nearer. "The wildfire caches are moved to the Mudgate," he said. "If Stannis breaks through, the city burns. My sister thinks a queen's tears will douse flames." Rhaenys raised a brow. "You trust me with such tidings?" He sipped. "Only fools hide from truth. Better to bind it fast. And you have yet to name your prince relative." "In time," she said. She produced a folded parchment. A schematic of hidden wells beneath Maegor's holdfast, notes she had copied from dusty archives. "These tunnels lead beneath the throne room. If wildfire threatens, withdraw innocence through them." Nendan. Tyrion studied the map, impressed. "You're no common baker. What is your game?" "The same as yours." "Survival." "Hardly. I prefer survival atop a mountain of coin." "Then help me survive," she said. "And coin may grow." He tapped the map. "Dot. You promised a gate open when I raise my chain." "Which gate?" "The Dragon Gate." She lied. In truth, the wagon would enter the muddy postern north of Pisswater Bend. But a Lannister must never know all pieces. Tyrion narrowed eyes. "Very well. If your wagon bears plague, I'll have your tongue." "Nine." "I am mute," she reminded. He chuckled darkly. "Not for long, I suspect." Preparations spiraled. Tiny mingled with Stormlander deserters, recruiting disillusioned men for gold. She arranged false cloaks bearing crowned stag sigils. When battle came, they would turn on their former lord. Varys funneled them into the city disguised as onion sellers. Rhaenys oversaw caches of stolen grain hidden in subterranean chapels to feed small folk after siege. She painted a single dragon sigil on each sack, tiny, easy to miss. Word reached them that Stannis' fleet, 200 war galleys, rounded Massey's hook. Panic rippled. The queen ordered mercenary cell sails to guard the Red Keep. Small folk built barricades. Septus prayed. Tyrion erected his chain, loaded scorpions, commanded wildfire barrels slung beneath decks of empty hulks. On the eve of battle, night sky glimmered with the same red comet, now fading but still visible. As though lingering to watch, Rhaenys climbed the hill of Rhaenys and knelt where her namesake dragoness had died by Maegor's scorpions centuries ago. She laid her coin upon the cracked stone and whispered, "I return, mother. I return, little brother. The city that slew you shall know your truth." She pressed the coin to her brow, hot despite chill air, then hid it again. Back in the rat-catcher's den she found Varys awaiting, cloaked in midnight silk. "I depart before dawn," he said. "Too many fires for one spider." "To where?" she asked. "Where riddles grow," he answered. "But know this, a dragon queen crosses the red waste. Already, flames birth legends. When she lands, your paths converge or collide. Choose wisely." "Then?" "I will," she said. He nodded once, then vanished. Dawn rose sickly green, wildfire's promise echoing in the sky. Bells tolled. Stannis banners appeared beyond the river, black hearts aflame upon red. Galleys advanced, oars churning. Tyrion rode the ramparts, helm shaped like a snarling lion. Joffrey watched from the gatehouse, crossbow in hand. Rhaenys slipped through tunnels to the pisswater postern. The wagon waited. 2 oxen, driver cloaked, tiny hidden under sacks. Rhaenys unbolted the gate. The wagon rumbled in. 24 Dornish spears, Obaris design, followed, cloaked as beggars. Rhaenys barred the gate behind them. "Positions," she ordered in low Valyrian. Men dispersed into alleys. Tiny clambered out, stretching. "I smell smoke already," she muttered. "May the Mother forgive our sins." "Mother has no part here," Rhaenys replied. "Only justice." They split. Tyene led half the spears to sabotage Stannis' siege ladders from within the city once chaos commenced. Rhaenys guided the rest toward a hidden cistern near the bay. Their escape route should wildfire ignite. The first drums of war boomed near midday. Stannis' galleys advanced into the mouth of the Blackwater. Rhaenys climbed a bell tower for vantage. She watched river water churn emerald as wildfire flared beneath the lead ship. A tower of green flame erupted, devouring hull and men. More barrels exploded. Chain rose. Ships crunched. Sailors burned. Screams carried. The sky darkened with smoke. Stannis' surviving ships veered, ramming burning hulks aside. Flaming wreckage drifted toward the city docks, igniting warehouses. Rhaenys saw gold cloaks scramble. Within minutes, half the bay boiled. At the gate of the gods, Stannis' ground forces slammed battering rams against oaken iron. Ladders clattered. Arrows fell. Tyne's deserters turned their cloaks, slicing former comrades. Rhaenys' spears emerged from alleys, driving into the ram's flank, scattering men. Amid confusion, city defenders rallied. Horns blew. High above, Joffrey panicked, shrieking orders. Cersei withdrew into Maegor's holdfast with Tommen. Tyrion led a sortie through the king's gate, wielding an axe, dwarf roaring beside mountain men. Stannis' men fell back. Wildfire's glow cast hellish light. Rhaenys descended, weaving through smoke. She reached the mouths of the tunnels beneath the throne room, just as fire sleeted across the battlements. Gold cloaks retreated, leaving small folk to burn. Inside the castle, panic reigned. Servants fled. Sparks drifted. Rhaenys found her flower closet untouched, donning fresh garments. A simple black dress, no sigil. She grabbed a pouch of charred grain sacks, small dragons stenciled upon them. She hastened to the sept of the Red Keep where refugees gathered. Children sobbed amid smoke. She tore open the grain, handed loaves, whispered, "A dragon remembers you." Word spread among frightened souls as she moved, leaving food, comfort, promises of dawn. Outside, battle raged. Tiny arrived, blood splattered, grinning wild. Stannis wavers. The dwarf bleeds but stands. The hound fled the flames. Rhaenys pressed a hand to Tiny's cheek. Then the city sees lions bleed. Time to show dragons breathe. They climbed to the tower of the hand's roof. Smoke wreaths parted to reveal the comet's ember trail. Rhaenys raised her arms, voice carrying across courtyard. "People of King's Landing, your king hides while you burn. Bread came not from lions, but from dragon's mercy. Remember this night, the night a dragon fed you." Faces turned upward. Small folk. Sel's even Goldcloak's bloodied and weary. Some recognized her eyes, her stance. A murmur spread. Targaryen, princess, returned. Tiny blew a horn thrice. Dornish spears on ramparts unfurled cloth. A red sun and spear entwined with a black dragon. Flames backlit the banner. Cheers rose, despite battle. On the river, Tyrion's men pushed. Stannis' host faltered, then broke. Soldiers fled toward their boats, cut down by city men newly emboldened. The bells of victory tolled at dawn's edge. The morning after, burnt stench hung over ruined wharfs. Crows feasted on char. Yet small folk spoke not of lions or stags, but of the woman with dragon eyes who fed them grain. Some swore she walked flames unburnt, a lie Rhaenys let bloom. Cersei searched for culprits behind the riot and betrayal, but her spies found no trail. Tyrion, battered and scarred, lay abed. Varys whispered of deserters turned cloak. Strange? How loyalty shifts, and suggested investigation. Rhaenys resumed her mute facade, delivering bread to injured defenders in the yard. She caught Tyrion's eye as he was borne on litter. He stared, perhaps recognizing the dragon printed small on the loaf. He smiled faintly. That night she met Tiny in the den once more. The city slept fitful. They broke a loaf between them. "We lit a spark," Tiny murmured. "Not yet the blaze," Rhaenys replied. She produced letters from Varys that had arrived by Raven. Stannis regrouping at Dragonstone. High Garden hosting talks with the Crown. Daenerys rumored near Korth with dragons grown thrice in size. "Our time nears," she said. "We must break free of shadows soon, or be lost in them." Tyene raised a dagger hilt to tap the coin at Rhaenys' throat. "Then let this coin become a banner." Rhaenys closed fingers around it, feeling the weight of every life lost. Since a blood-smeared doll fooled killers years ago, dragons do not merely reclaim, she whispered. They reshape. When next the world sees me, it will know the future roaring in its bones. Bendoah. Tiny bowed her head. "And I will stand at your flank, sister of the storm." Outside, the rebuilt bells of King's Landing told an uneasy peace. But their chimes could not drown the beat of wings distant yet approaching. The echo of a queen across the sea, and the stirrings of fire within the heart of a girl grown into vengeance. Rhaenys Targaryen drew a breath, and let it fill every scarred hollow. The city smoke tasted bitter, but beneath it, she sensed the sweet hint of ash that feeds fertile ground. Soon, very soon, and the coin, that faithful ember, throbbed against her skin like a dragon's heart ready to wake.